At 6:15 a.m. on June 6, 1944, a 20-year-old former farmhand named Heinrich Severloh lay flat in a concrete bunker designated Widerstandsnest 62. He was perched 40 meters above the sand of Omaha Beach. In the pre-dawn gloom, the air smelled of sart, wet wool, and the diesel fumes of an approaching armada. Severloh was a boy from Lower Saxony who had been trained as an artilleryman. He had never fired a shot at another human being, but as the ramps of the American Higgins boats dropped at 6:30 a.m., he didn't have a choice. He squeezed the trigger of his weapon. The gun didn't chatter, it didn't pop. It emitted a continuous, bone-chilling roar, a sound the Allies would later describe as ripping canvas. This was the MG42. At 1,200 rounds per minute, the individual explosions were indistinguishable. It was simply a wall of lead. Over the next 9 hours, Severloh would fire over 12,000 rounds. That morning earned him a terrifying nickname, the Beast of Omaha. But the story of the weapon that turned a beach into a slaughterhouse doesn't begin with a general or a legendary gunsmith. It begins in a small Saxon town, in a factory that made lanterns. In the early 1930s, the German military had a revolutionary idea, the Einheitsmaschinengewehr, the universal machine gun. Before this, you had light guns for squads and heavy guns for fixed positions. The Germans wanted one gun to do it all. The result was the MG34. It was, quite literally, a mechanical masterpiece. But there was a fatal flaw. The MG34 was a machinist's gun. To make one, a skilled craftsman had to take a solid block of high-grade steel and, through hundreds of hours of precision milling, shave it down until a receiver emerged. It was like carving a statue. It took 150 man-hours to produce a single MG34. It was expensive, it required a small army of master machinists, and it was temperamental. If a grain of sand got into its clockwork-tight tolerances, the gun died. As Germany prepared for a global war, they realized they were trying to build Ferraris to do the work of tractors. They needed a weapon that could be built by the millions, by anyone, in any shop. The Outsider, Dr. Werner Gruner. In 1937, the German Army Weapons Agency put out a call for a replacement. Two legendary arms giants, Rheinmetall and Stubgen, submitted designs. The third entry, however, raised eyebrows. It came from Metall- und Lackierwarenfabrik Johannes Grossfuss. They didn't make rifles, they made stamped metal lanterns and lacquerware. Their lead designer was Dr. Werner Gruner. Gruner wasn't a gun guy, he was a manufacturing engineer. He had never served in the military, he didn't know the right way to build a weapon. What he did know was how to use a hydraulic press to punch shapes out of sheet metal. While the other companies tried to refine the MG34, Gruner did something radical. He went to the front lines. He spent weeks with soldiers in machine gun courses. He didn't look at the ballistics, he watched the men. He saw them fumbling with hot barrels. He saw them struggling to clean delicate parts in the mud. He realized that a soldier doesn't need a masterpiece. He needs a tool that works when everything else is falling apart. Gruner went back to his lantern factory and designed a gun that looked like it was made in a hardware store. Traditionalists were horrified. The MG42 wasn't crafted, it was stamped. Gruner took flat sheets of steel and punched them into three-dimensional shapes using heavy dies. This was the same process used to make car fenders or kitchen pots. The advantages were staggering. 1. Speed. Production time dropped from 150 hours to 75 hours. 2. Cost. The price fell from 327 Reichsmarks to 250. And 3. Materials. It used significantly less raw steel, which was vital as Allied blockades tightened. But the real magic was inside. Gruner replaced the complex rotating bolt of the MG42 with a roller locking system. It was elegant and simple. Two rollers would lock the bolt into the barrel, and the recoil would cam them back to unlock it. It was a rugged, violent, and incredibly fast cycle. When the MG42 was finally tested, the German High Command was stunned. The gun was firing at 1,200 to 1,500 rounds per minute. To put that in perspective, the American Browning M1919 fired at about 500. The high rate of fire wasn't just for show. German tactical doctrine was built on the burst. They knew that in combat, a target is usually only visible for a split second before they dive for cover. If you fire at 600 rounds per minute, you might get 2 bullets near the target in that second. At 1,200 rounds per minute, you get 4. Gruner had created a lead shotgun that made it nearly impossible to dodge. But that speed created a new problem: heat. A barrel firing that fast would melt in minutes. Gruner's team solved this with an ingenious quick-change slot on the side of the shroud. A gunner could pop a lever, the red-hot barrel would slide out, and a fresh one would click in, all in under 6 seconds. It meant the MG42 didn't just fire fast, it fired forever. When the MG42 hit the battlefields of North Africa and Russia, it didn't just kill, it traumatized. The sound was so distinct that the U.S. Army had to release training films to calm their soldiers. They told the GIs the German gun's bark is worse than its bite, trying to convince them that the high rate of fire was actually a waste of ammunition. It was a lie, and the soldiers knew it. The Americans called it Hitler's Buzzsaw. The Soviets called it the linoleum cutter. By the time the Allies hit the beaches of Normandy, the MG42 was the backbone of the German defense. In the resistance nests, like the one Severloh occupied, the MG42 was the primary reason the first wave of the invasion nearly failed. It created interlocking fields of fire, cross-sections of lead that made moving across the sand a mathematical impossibility. The war ended in 1945, but the MG42 did not. When West Germany joined NATO in the 1950s, they didn't want a new machine gun. They wanted the MG42. They simply rechambered it for the standard NATO 7.62 millimeter round and called it the MG3. Today, more than 80 years after Werner Gruner first sat in a lantern factory with a sheet of steel, his design is still in active service. It is used by the German Bundeswehr, the Italian Army, and dozens of countries across the globe. The M60 used by Americans in Vietnam, it took its feed system directly from the MG42. The Belgian FN Mag, it borrows the trigger and feed mechanism. History often remembers the names of the generals who moved the pins on the map. We remember Eisenhower, Rommel, and Patton. But history is also written by the outsiders. It was written by a mechanical engineer named Gruner, who looked at a lantern and saw a weapon. He proved that precision isn't always found in a master's touch. Sometimes it's found in the efficiency of the machine. The MG42 remains a chilling reminder of what happens when industrial genius is harnessed for destruction. It was a weapon born of necessity, built by the thousands, and fueled by a sound that no one who heard it would ever forget. The scream of the beast was the sound of the 20th century arriving, industrial, cold, and devastatingly efficient.